You give 10 entrepreneurs the same idea, they will all end up in radically different places. The game is about the order in which you make decisions. All of the people who run the most successful programs, the further and further up you go on the curve, the more and more time and energy and effort people spend on the how do I make sure every student is successful.
Pick the low-hanging fruit that isn't necessarily going to lead to the immediate reward, but it's the low-hanging operational improvement that in 6 months, if you don't make, you're going to have wasted all that time.
I'm noticing a trend that I feel like the first half of each year is fix the foundation. And then the back half of the year, it's like you feel all that momentum from that new foundation.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Boom. Welcome back to another episode of the Espresso Hour Week 6 Business Recap. Another good week in the books in today's breakdown, video, podcast, all the different ways we're going to talk about what happened this week, a couple lessons we learned, and then dive into a fun, maybe it's an auxiliary topic, but basically breaking down a single part of our business, which is our core pillars and core operating values. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I can't believe it's week 6 in the year already.
I wrote that this morning. I'm like, and here we are. It's Friday again.
This is January. Once January is gone, you're like, and we're off and running.
We're off and running.
So just quick recap. Big thing that got done this week was we hired a new lead editor. So Mackenzie, welcome to the team. Very excited about this. And then we also hired a social setter, I think is sort of how we're thinking about it. Yeah. So someone to manage Instagram and TikTok, potentially shorts on YouTube, and thinking through how to build a setting process for people coming through those platforms into our Premium Ghostwriting Academy. So welcome to the team, Josh.
Yeah, we have a foundation set for video on Instagram and TikTok now, or Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, where we really don't have a presence there. I think we started with Instagram just doing the minimum of posting every day and trying out different formats. But now we say, okay, with that foundation, plus having a lead editor, we can start to optimize a little bit. And I think over the next 3 to 6 months, we'll play more with actually fitting the content to that platform rather than just reposting other platform content onto Instagram.
You know what's so wild? It's another painful reminder of how the game of content always comes down to, if the content isn't performing well, that means you're not providing enough value to the person. So we've just been doing autopilot on Instagram for a couple months, and almost everything that I've posted has not performed very well, just like standard stuff. But the same video clip 3 different times has gone mega viral. It's like 3,000 views, 1 million views. And the fact that one clip is the one that keeps triggering, I'm like...
Okay, once you do it right, it's the signal. But this is an important distinction. And I think a lot of people are making this mistake when they're branching out to new platforms right now. I liked this point. You're not getting in your beginner reps on the platform. So people with resources are now looking at Hormozi and other people playing the game at a high level on YouTube and Instagram and thinking, okay, all I need to do is get a high quality team and they'll take my ideas and it's just going to work. But they're not looking at the fact that Hormozi was posting on Instagram from gym launch days for years. He made YouTube videos with just a talking head and a loom for a year and a half. And there's some kind of almost paying your rent as a beginner on any of these platforms that I think people are making the mistake of. So I was fine just putting straight up tweets out there for 35, 40 days now before I start to even change anything, because I've learned a little bit about how the platform works before I just unveil from day one, okay, I'm going to try this optimized short form animated strategy and hope it works. I think you have to start with, let's just feel it out first and then optimize.
And people disguise the data by doing things like, I'm starting day 1 on Instagram and I'm immediately going to go find 10 of my friends who have huge audiences to repost my stories, which skews the data. Or you do this with ads too. You're like, I've got a new idea for a product or a business. I want to get people's eyeballs on it. And you start running ads, not realizing that those are 2 examples of how you're sort of juicing the numbers, but it actually makes it more difficult for you to learn and understand, well, what is working? Because you didn't give yourself the chance to do it organically the first time.
It's almost a performance enhancing drug.
Totally.
If you start with it, right?
Starting with steroids.
If you start with steroids, it's going to be hard to come off it. And when you start to come off it, you're going to see worse results. And then jump back on it. That's interesting. Idea there.
I like, that's just a general idea, but almost anything that I do, I always use the analogy, how can you start with ankle weights? You know, it's like runners will train wearing ankle weights. So then when it's the day of the race, you take them off and you're like, oh, I've been intentionally holding myself back, you know? So in everything, whatever you're building, how can you train with ankle weights in the beginning to make your life easier in the long run?
That doesn't mean you have to train with ankle weights forever, though.
Yeah.
Like some people might be taking too long, and there's striking that nice balance where, given we have proven content, we know it will work eventually, but it's not like we have to start with completely new ideas on these new platforms, right? We're starting from level 3 rather than level 0, but we're not trying to jump to level 10.
Yep. I think another really cool thing that happened this week, which sort of dovetails into the next few takeaways, is one of the benefits of the mastermind that we joined is we can book calls with, you know, Cole Gordon. We can book calls with his executive team. That was one of the benefits of joining 8-Figure Boardroom. And so we had sort of reached a point in PGA, you know, we'd grown very quickly, team had expanded. And so we didn't know the next ideal scene. So grabbed 30 minutes. We had a great conversation with them, talked. And I think it's cool when those conversations do two things. One, they reveal the things you don't know. So you're like, okay, now I have the ideal scene. I know what to focus on. But then also benefits of that conversation is reinforcing that you're doing all the right things. Like that was another thing, was us going, we actually don't need to change a lot.
Right. It was, here's some tactics, but no change to strategy, which was very relief inducing. It's like, you actually are doing everything right, but here are the small little things that are going to help you get there faster. Yep. So this week we upgraded our system for triaging unqualified applications, which we basically were saying 50% of people who fill out an application to join PGA are just disqualified based on income, based on experience, based on a couple different factors. And inherently this was leading to type 2 errors, which for any probability nerds out there, it's when you have a false negative, which is someone could have joined, but we said they were disqualified. Where a type 1 error would be someone was disqualified, but we said they were qualified, which we're already making plenty of. But there are a ton of people who, based on the way we engineered the questions, had unique circumstances that before this week, we just never were talking to. And we built a system. And it's funny to think, as we were building the system, it was, how much should we optimize this? But anything more than what we were doing was a bonus. So it was at 0. So as we were doing it, we're like, should we do this? Should we do that? I'm like, what's the simplest way that we can just unlock this stream a little bit without any new complex work? And it was like 1 or 2 emails, and now we have a system to do it. And it was cool to see that reinforced, because we had a couple people join that until this week we never would have talked to.
Yeah. Yeah. The work you've done on that side of the business is super impressive. It's such a cool supply chain, and
we're close. We're close. It's almost there. It's almost there.
What about this small AMA session?
Oh yeah. Okay. So this was a lot of fun, and we'll talk about the lessons I learned from it, but basically been tweeting out what I wrote every single day so far this year, and did one kind of giveaway to a bunch of people who've been commenting every day, where I sat down with a 3 to 5 person small group, Ask Me Anything, for free for 45 minutes, and just they came and I hosted a Zoom call. It was really interesting I think we take for granted how many people are reading our stuff right now, where you just look at it let's just jump into the lesson and realization I had, which is you can get numb to a large social media following over time, but this small group AMA kind of reset my perspective on it. So when you have 1 million views on our content, which is roughly what we're doing a week, it's easy to take that number for granted, and you start to see it as like a collection. So it's like, I got 1 million views, then I got 800,000, then I got 600, then I got 1.5 million. It's like, that's just a number on a screen.
You're not thinking about the person.
Exactly.
It's just like an amorphous.
Right. But that's 1 million one-to-one relationships where they saw your content and then they had an interpretation of it. And it wasn't until I had these 5 people on a call who had been reading my stuff for the last 6 months, 12 months. I was asking them where they were from, what they were working on, why they read what I put out. And then the fun question of what was the first thing they ever saw me write? Like, how were they introduced to me? And one was LinkedIn, one was Twitter, one was they'd been following my Substack before I even started any of this. I was like, wow, it was interesting to hear this full perspective. And then just paying back people that are engaging with our stuff. I think we overestimate. I walked out of there with like 6 or 7 new content ideas from just kind of taking some rough ideas and refining them during that conversation. So it was nothing but upside. And I have 5 new, even more lifelong readers or viewers just answering a couple of their questions.
Something that I want to share too, because you explaining it to me here, I thought was really interesting. So you did this AMA, you got these people on Zoom, but you took the Zoom call from the shipyard. And so you were recording the call on Zoom locally from your computer, but right also here, recording it from this camera and this mic. And then while you were on the call to explain the concepts, you were creating a piece of content as you were explaining the concepts. So we've definitely entered a new age where there's the content about the content as you're creating new content, which can get spliced into different content, you know?
There's something here that I think is, if we can productionalize this, where a 30-minute small group AMA has so many compounding factors where it encourages people to engage with your content because then they're eligible to attend. It reinforces that you're almost someone that people look up to because they're coming and asking questions, especially with the frame of me talking to a camera, but recording it from over there. And what I find the most valuable by far is it gives me a new vehicle to refine ideas. So a lot of my current things that are I'm working on in the back of my head from a progress writing perspective, I am not able to just one take. I'm thinking about a little bit more in depth. So writing about them in the morning and then having a vehicle in the afternoon to talk them out, which is exactly what I did, then led to a writing session the next morning where I was a little bit closer to having a full understanding of that idea. So it's this new medium that is very low stakes. It has there's no downside, right? Worst case, I don't fully understand the idea, but I'm able to give them some kind of advice on their situation and then go and refine it after that. So,
and the takeaway should be, it's not that you need some giant audience in order to do something like that.
That's right.
Like you could literally have 50 followers and be like, I want to do a AMA, let's talk about this topic this afternoon. It could be about the most niche thing ever. It's like, I want to jam about how to engineer a supply chain for a beverage company. Let me know if you want to hop on. And all of a sudden, A, you're creating an interesting piece of content from that. But B, the real value is you're practicing and refining your ideas in front of an audience, right? Which is the quality of that rep is so much higher than the quality of rep when you're just doing it on your own.
Right.
You know, so the real value isn't even in the number of people. It's just the fact that you had to do it in front of someone else.
It's like I get a stand-up comedy audience, except I'm not doing stand-up. I'm just talking out ideas. So there's something here that I want to try, and if we can productionalize and I can do them every day, I want to start doing that because I think we'd see a flywheel start to pick up with a couple different parts of our audience. So we'll see.
Right with AI's on a tear.
Continues to be on a tear, up to 1,280 paying subscribers, 280K in annualized revenue. And this week we started our referral program, which has been a low-hanging fruit. Our goal with Right With AI is to make it so good where people can't help but tell their friends. So we now incentivize them to tell their friends. A simple process there. And I was looking at the numbers. We already have 150 free subscribers from it and maybe 15 paid from the referral program. So that's only 1 week in, and we'll see where it goes from here. But having something there was important.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously brand new. I'm so obsessed with this idea right now that whenever you're doing something new, the very first measure for success is you weren't doing it, now you're doing it. Like literally don't optimize anything. It's just, it was off, now it's on. And then once it's on, now you can begin the iteration process. And so now that this is on and we already see that little signal of, oh, this leads to more growth, I want to do outrageous things with the rewards. Like I think the first reward we came up with is if you refer 100 people, we'll do a 30-minute jam session with you on your business. You know, I mean, that's worth, if we were to charge someone that would be thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So I'm really excited about not just doing this with Right With AI, but how can we do this with some of our other businesses as well, where we can give more and more valuable rewards to people who help us grow and build our businesses.
Yeah, I think it's a 10-80-10 kind of idea here, where the first 10% you should just turn it on, But then if you're not going to give it your full attention, don't give it any more.
Yeah.
There's something there where you want to do the minimum amount to take it from 0 to get the first 10% because, again, this is a probability nerd thing. You've heard of the 80-20 principle, which is 20%, 80% of the rewards come from 20% of the effort. But it's actually, I might be mixing up the numbers, but I think it's 464, which are 64% of the rewards come with the first 4% of effort. So it's almost like
the tranche.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a scaled down version where I think it's a Pareto distribution, but this is.
But that makes sense. I mean, we're seeing it even with video. It's like, what's the first measure for success? You weren't posting YouTube videos. Now you are, and if all you do is just that, you're going to grow. That's the whole POV of Ship 30 is like, if you want to grow, literally just write something every day. And then everything beyond that is increments of better.
So it's 4% of the process solves 50% of the upside.
Yeah.
Right. So that, I think it's not even 80-20 with a lot of the things we're starting. It's the 450. That's an interesting idea I'm going to write down.
So the past few weeks, Success Week for PGA has turned into Success Month, which is probably going to end up being Success Quarter. And a couple really interesting takeaways for me on this. One is it makes me realize how easy it is to look at your business just as a whole, like just being like, how do I make this thing grow? How do I make Ship 30 grow? How do I make PGA grow? And in reality, it's all these individual parts. And then if you were to just dig into one part, it would take you weeks or even months or sometimes an entire year just to make that one part of the business operate at the level you need it to. And so digging into this and redoing the curriculum a second time, it's very humbling. It makes me realize like how often I'll look at a problem and be like, oh, we just need to make one change. It's like, no, because when you start to dig into it, you realize, okay, well, that problem is happening because of something else. That something else is happening because of something else. You have to drill 7 layers deep, and then you have to solve each layer,
Okay, so there's something here because there's a reason businesses do quarterly planning, right? They usually pick one thing per quarter. And when we were just doing Ship 30, the problem with doing quarterly planning is we could only improve something one time during that quarter. But if you commit to improving something for the entire quarter with a daily feedback loop, that is, I think we're starting to crystallize that you can only really, I put earlier this year, one of our takeaways being you need to theme weeks. So we did Success Week, that turned into Infrastructure Week, which is just really setting up the back end. I think it's Infrastructure Quarter, like you said earlier, where if you could only pick one part of the business to fix for the whole quarter, what would you pick? And force yourself to only improve that part the entire time. I think you unlock a lot more upside on that week 9, 10, 11 when you've really got the system in place and you're now making the final tweaks.
And stuff like this is not the shiny object.
No.
Like there are so many other things that would be so much more fun to work on.
This is the dullest of all objects that you could come up with. It's whatever the opposite of shiny and sharp is.
Yeah.
It's just dull and bland.
But you know what, especially in the world of digital products and education, what's really clicking for me is that this component and these types of components where you're just obsessed about internal efficiency or training or student success or all of the things that happen after the shiny object of creating the product, that is what really separates these types of products and programs. And so you see, like, there's a gazillion resources out there on how do I launch a course or how do I write an ebook, because that's the shiny object and that's what everyone wants to do. And everyone thinks, well, if I just make that product, then everyone's going to buy it and I'm going to be an internet millionaire. And that's not what happens. And all of the people who run the most successful programs and have the most successful digital products, if you look at it on a curve, the further and further up you go on the curve, the more and more operational complexity there is, the more and more time and energy and effort people spend on the how do I make sure every student is successful or how do I make, it's all the internal stuff.
This goes back to that idea we learned a year ago, which is most people don't have a business, they have a promotion.
I love when we went to the mastermind, that was one of the biggest takeaways. Yeah.
And the difference between a business's promotion is how long will it last without doing the same marketing or one-off hype. And honestly, like Ship 30 for a lot was a promotion, and then it turned into a business. And now we're trying to smooth it out to be even more of a business, where I think there's some kind of correlation between the volatility and variability in your monthly revenue and the sustainability of your business.
Yep.
Where if every month looks like this, which we've had in the past, far less over the last 12 months, there's a high correlation to that's promotion, that's promotion, that's promotion, versus a business. You should be able to have some kind of numerical projection for the entire month ahead of what's going to happen. And I can sit down within, I would say, a 50K range right now, tell you what we're going to do this month. And I could tell you the levers that would get us to the next leap from there.
Yep.
We have a problem, man, where we were coming up with too many ideas to talk about far deeper because of this weekly jam session.
Yeah, this is.
I have 50 ideas to go write more about. I'm like, I gotta write this one down. I gotta write this one down.
This just, on that note too, though, it's why like I see like a great example of this is a promotion is and was when Twitter threads were going nuts on Twitter. And then people would be like, I'm going to teach you how to ghostwrite these viral Twitter threads. And it's like, that's fine. And you're taking advantage of that moment in time, but you're missing the bigger picture. You're not building a business. You're building a promotion, because a business, and this has given me so much like calm about building PGA, is what is the likelihood that more and more writers are going to want to become ghostwriters, like as a career? Right? That is only going to increase. That trend is not going to slow down. And so there's a huge difference between learn how to write viral Twitter threads, aka short-term promotion, versus full stack ghostwriter, understand the skills, right? Learn how to actually build a career as a ghostwriter. That business and that conveyor belt of training isn't going to slow down. So yeah, it's just, and now that we have that lens, it's fascinating looking at other people's businesses being like, great, but if you want to increase the defensibility of that business, you're going to have to make some changes.
And our former businesses, like if we could look at ourselves during 2022, right? Think about how many things we might have done differently during that time from a operational perspective. Okay, next, the last two pieces here. We began the process to update the engineering of our backend email. So this has been, I think, the third piece of operational infrastructure. We started with sales. We then did success. Both of those are humming pretty nicely. Actually, this will be the fourth, because then we did the full marketing KPI, where I feel like I'm an orchestra maestro right now in Airtable. I can basically see the whole business on a handful of bases. The very last one is our email backend just cleaning the whole thing up, where we just hit 100,000 people on our email list. I haven't checked that total number in a long time, but our run rate has significantly increased with our different content entry points, different platforms all growing at the same time. But now, because we have different offers, it's hard to track where everyone is on each different point, right? Where they are on the Ship 30 side, the PGA side, the Write with AI side, the fiction writing with AI side, and that's it right now, if we have any more. But the reason this is important when you have these daily feedback loop businesses is you can be marketing to different people in different stages at different times on different products. And if that's all working together, you won't feel it immediately, but the run rate just seems to pick up. And so from a optimization perspective, we should know for every subscriber, which of our opt-ins have they opted into? So we should know where they're at with PGA, like I said. We should know the stage within each individual one. So are they a free sub, paid sub? Have they filled out a PGA application? Are they in the school group? Basically, how can we get them deeper in our ecosystem through our emails? And then lastly, if we're going to cross-promote, when someone joins Write with AI, the free email course, they should at the end get pitched on both joining the paid newsletter and, hey, go check out the fiction writing AI course. So tons of small, low-hanging fruit optimizations here that once we have clarity, we can start to build.
Yeah.
So it's, again, like a foundation for email marketing needs to get reset. Foundation for student success got reset. Foundation for sales got reset. So we're close. And you can tell this is like where I get excited because I can see the future.
This is such a great example of doing this just in time. Because I think it would have been a massive mistake to try and build this system at the very beginning. Because what are you really building for? Like, you don't even have all these products yet built or for sale. And so something I've been asking myself, just because we're the furthest into, this is the most mature business I've ever built. A lot more mature than my first company. And it's interesting to ask the question, if we were to start completely over tomorrow, what would we do differently? And one of the questions I ask myself, because we've built so many of these new components, is if we were to start tomorrow, like, would we start with a success team right away for a program? Like, would we start with this level of email infrastructure, things like that? And what's interesting is a lot of times the answer is no. Like, I think we would do it the exact same way, where it's you and I taking every sales call. It's you and I doing all the fulfillment. It's like, you start as lean as possible, and then you do all of these things just in time.
I think we would start the same way, but the speed at which we would have iterated ourselves out of it would be faster.
Yeah, because we would know where it's going.
Right. And then last thing we did, we started this Net Promoter Score surveying. I think this was, again, how can we start to pick some low-hanging fruit to improve the program? We should ask everyone how they're enjoying the program after 8 weeks.
All right, you want to rapid fire some of these?
Yes.
Lessons?
Okay. This one is by far the biggest realization from the week is your business has a giant free money tree growing in your front yard. And I just wake up every day and I'm picturing myself stare at that giant free money tree. And up at the top, there's a bunch of fruit, like really high up there. And I'm like, damn, I should maybe go get that ladder and call the fire department and spring up there so I can go get that really good looking apple that's sitting up there. And then I walk around to the other side of the tree and there's just the same apples, or probably even better, and they're just within arm's reach. And we've spent all month just picking those. And I think we're going to spend all year just picking them.
Yeah. I really like that analogy, because you can, there's one of the guys who invested in my first business. He had this amazing quote that said, if you give 10 entrepreneurs the same idea and the same resources, they will all end up in radically different places. Because the game isn't actually about, do you have a good idea or do you have the resources? The game is about the order in which you make decisions. Because the order in which you make decisions completely changes the outcomes that you generate. And so that metaphor is a great example of, you have two entrepreneurs. One of them goes, I have to get the apple at the top of the tree. And the other one goes, I'm just going to grab these three that are hanging, low-hanging fruit. Which one is going to feel that impact on their business the fastest? Well, it's going to be the second one. So it's all about the order in which you make decisions, not necessarily the idea or the resources.
Just to reinforce that with examples, every single thing we did this week was a low-hanging fruit. MPS survey, it was at 0. We picked it. Now it's at level 1. The email backend system, it was at 0. We started to build it. Now we know pretty much a baseline where everyone's at. Right with AI referral program, what are all the different ways we could grow it? Well, we should probably just launch the referral program. The unqualified applications, big, complicated potential process. No, just start asking them, hey, could you clarify a couple things? Almost everything we did this week was just pick the low-hanging fruit. I'm trying to remind ourselves of that.
Actually, going back to what you said, each one of these things is the 4% that generates the 50%. Because none of these are like, except for the student success. That is we've been drilling in for weeks on that. But everything else is how can you do the minimum that unlocks at least half of the value?
And what's led to a lot of this realization is having the daily meetings across sales, marketing, and success, where I've been doing the marketing meeting on my own, but just 40 minutes after that success meeting, I just block time. I'm like, I'm going to stare at this dashboard and I'm going to look where is the juicy apple that's within arm's reach, and then let's build it today, and then do the same thing the next day. So it's been exciting to do things and challenging at the same time, because revenue has been flat the last month, and relative to the run rate we were at in October and September, it's up 20-30%. I think November, December are always going to be outliers in our type of business, but we're not going to feel the impacts of these. And so it's been challenging from a long-term perspective of like, pick the low-hanging fruit that isn't necessarily going to lead to the immediate reward, but it's the low-hanging operational improvement that in 6 months, if you don't make, you're going to be making, and you're going to have wasted all that time because you're making poor decisions all the way over there.
Yep. I'm noticing a trend that I feel like the first half of each year is fix the foundation. And then the back half of the year, it's like you feel all that momentum from that new foundation. So
hopefully.
Hopefully.
That's what I'm feeling. Okay, this one, the best businesses create systems to talk to every customer in some way. So this is the NPS survey that we started. We're going to start segmenting our email subscribers or surveying them a little bit more, which is like, hey, why are you reading us? How could we add more value? Do you have any ideas for us? Talking to paid newsletter customers, asking, hey, do you have any requests for new prompts for Write with AI? It all comes back to we dramatically overestimate how many people we need to talk to improve our business. It could just be one conversation that goes, okay, if you feel that way, chances are most people, a lot of other people feel that exact same way. And yeah, you got to be careful to not overfit to an outlier. But if a handful of people echo the same sentiment or want the same idea, just go build that thing. And it only takes one survey on autopilot to help you do that.
I like that a lot. Yeah. Both, and also too, it's also true from even a revenue perspective. Like you never need as many people as you think.
No.
And the mistake that everyone makes is they start with one offer and then they go, well, now I guess I need more people. And in reality, the easier path is you already have a handful of people. How can you help ascend them, and how can they pay you more? You know, a smaller group paying you more over a long period of time is the easier path.
And potentially the more lucrative and sustainable. And then lastly, if you can tell by how many directions we went on this Espresso Hour, scaling will feel a bit overwhelming and messy. Never expect otherwise, no matter how clean your plan looks.
Yep.
And this is a reminder to myself about adaptability. Plans are going to change, goals will change, algorithms will change, expectations will change, life circumstances are going to change.
Yeah. You've gotten a lot better at this though. Like
I
remember like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we'd have so many conversations that's like, this is going to be our daily routine forever. And I'm like, bro, 2 weeks from now, that daily routine isn't going to make any sense. Because that's the nature, like the whole nature of building a business is that it is a changing thing. So what works in 1 week, once you add a new component, the whole thing's different, you know, and it's a different business when you have 1 employee, 5 employees, 10 employees. So yeah, adaptability is
Thanks
huge.
for dealing with 24-year-old me.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. I get it.
Week 6, we are 12% done with the year already. Crazy. I put this in my personal review of, as I'm getting older, the big 2-8 next week. I feel time going a little bit faster, but that actually puts me at ease to expect results more slowly, because if I know time's going to go faster, I can get comfortable with slower progress because that will accumulate faster in my head. For whereas early on, I think especially in like that 23 to 25 range, 26.
You have no long-term thinking whatsoever.
And because so much new is happening, it feels like time's moving very slowly, which means you expect results quickly because from a just expectations perspective, you're like, my life feels different today than 3 months ago. Which
why
means,
hasn't everything caught up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Versus now I'm like, I'm going to be doing the same thing at this time next year. How can I reduce the scope and expectation over which I expect to make progress? So even though we're doing this on a weekly basis, give ourselves some time to make these upgrades and learn these lessons and drill them home.
28 and 29 those are great ages.
Good years?
Yeah, those are great years.
All right,
Soak it up.
Can't wait.
Soak it up. I am very, very excited to see where we're at in April, May.
I'm excited to make a montage of these lessons. I think if we could do one cool thing for the end of the year, it'll be, here's 50 lessons all from old clips of the podcast, right? To reinforce everything we're learning, because we'll probably have forgotten half of them and be making the same mistakes then. All right, that's all we got for this week's Espresso Hour. We're enjoying this. If you are enjoying this as well, please hit that subscribe button, toss the video a like, leave a comment. Secret word for this week, birthday.
Oh, I
birthday.
Like it.
My birthday is Feb 18th. This actually might be coming out a little bit, right around there. So if you can put birthday in there. Last week, we did access to the small group AMA. So if I'm hosting those, we're going to pick, I'll do like a bulk pick where I only do it with people who comment on YouTube videos. So if you want the chance to ask us a one-on-one question about your business, your life, whatever it is, leave a comment that uses birthday. If you're on Spotify, hit the 5-star button, I think it is. We're trying to get this to 100. If you are the lucky number 100, we'll have a little surprise. Well, a little surprise for you. Exactly. That's all we got. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next week. Have a good one.
Everyone.